I'm currently playing through Fire Emblem Conquest with a team that was drafted by YouTube commenters, people on Reddit, friends on Discord, and even my own mother. Recently I hit the first difficulty spike of the game, Chapter 10. This is a defense mission where Takumi and his army show up to attack the port, and you need to guard a fairly open area against a large group of enemies who are all quite dangerous. So let's see how I did. First, I'm going to go over the team. Corrin is mandatory because he's the main character. Effie was drafted by YouTube commenters. Odin was picked by Reddit, and Nyx was picked by my mom, mostly just because she liked her name. In this chapter, we'll be getting 3 new characters. Selena was picked by YouTube, Baruka was picked by Reddit, she was actually the most upvoted character on Reddit, and my friend who knows nothing about this game picked Camilla for mysterious reasons. Later on, we'll be using Valoria, Ophelia, Dwyer, Charlotte, Ignatius, Laszlo, and Flora. And my goal is to field and use every single drafted character in Endgame, without skipping over the map. But we don't have access to any of these characters yet, so I won't spend too much time discussing them. Now, my rules do allow me to field units for the sake of building friendships and supports, as well as using up any empty spots on the roster until drafted characters appear to fill those spaces. So, for example, in the clip you're watching now, we had enough deployment slots to send Niles, Mozu, Azura, Arthur, Silas, and Felicia into battle, but I'm only allowed to keep doing this until there are empty spaces available. Once my drafted characters have joined the team, I need to focus on the drafted characters. Oh, by the way, in the attempt you're watching, I'm very soon about to get overwhelmed and get a game over. I lost multiple times off stream, and then decided to ask people on stream for help, but we weren't able to get it on the first try. This person in chat, Kevin, was trying to warn me about the Oni Savage near the top of the map, but I thought he was talking about the top Oni in the group on the right, so I didn't initially think much of his comment. When the first turn ended, this Oni Savage just ran right past Odin and seized the goal, which is amazing. Unfortunately, since I play with enemy movement turned off, we didn't even see what happened at first, and it took me a few seconds to figure it out. By the way, turning off enemy movement makes the gameplay significantly faster. If you're impatient, like me, this is great, although it does sometimes lead to confusing scenarios. So if you're careless, also like me, just try to pay attention and don't end up like me. After this, we forged a fire tome for Odin and gave it the name Infernian Flames, which actually does not synergize with his personal skill at all, since the fire tome is not capable of landing critical hits, but at least the name is cool. We bought a Master Seal and used it on Nyx under the advisement of chat, so that she is capable of using staves, and her combat will be a little bit better. Once we run out of deployment slots and we can no longer field Felicia or Elise, it will be important to have a backup staff user, so this was a decent investment. People in chat also let me know that if you give a magic tonic to Camilla, and she uses it right away, she can one-round the Oni Savages for the rest of the chapter. By the way, the title of this stream was literally just Help Me. I'm really grateful to everyone who showed up and informed me of all of these little details that allowed me to make the best decisions so that we could beat this map and end the stream in a timely manner. Let's see how the next attempt went. I start by having Mozu run to the village and grab the Master Seal, sent Nyx with her, and had Odin run to the left to shoot the fire orb. Meanwhile, Arthur and the others start breaking down the wall in the center. I felt a lot more confident about my opener this time. Okay, I lied. I'm so worried about these ninjas over here. I never have any idea of how to deal with them properly. But the key to this opener is having Silas transport Effie across the map quickly and drop her in position to defeat the wounded soldiers on enemy phase. That should help slow down the amount of enemies coming towards us on the following turn, I hope. And I made one small change to my strategy this time. I had Odin continue to attack with the fire orb, standing in this spot, instead of moving all the way to the left to intercept the enemies. Since I know I'm getting reinforcements next turn, I can just rely on them to cover the distance later. And on the right side, Nyx is using the ballista to chip down the enemies over here. In the past, I've always been reluctant about using ballista and fire orbs in Fire Emblem Fates, because I thought I would be missing out on experience if I chipped down the enemies too much before killing them. But realistically, once I thought about it, you only lose out on a very small amount of experience between 1 rounding or 2 rounding an enemy. And you know what else causes you to miss out on experience and waste time? Losing the map and getting a game over. So yeah, you don't have to listen to me because I'm clearly not an expert on Fates, but I say you should just use these things. I figure if I can one-shot these ninja, it's going to make my life easier. Thankfully, Effie is capable of doing that on her own. The trick is figuring out how to get rid of the other ninja without getting debuffed. and that's why we have Azura. Dancer or singer utility is one of the best things about Fire Emblem, and one of the things that makes these games so unique. Plus, it saved me the frustration of figuring out another way to deal with these ninja. Now, if only I had 2 clones of Azura on the right-hand side to help me deal with these other Oni savages. Hold on a moment, let me think about something. Can replicate clones use the dance command? I feel like they're not allowed to, but I'm not 100% sure. Let me know in the comments below. And if you're very smart and you know the answers to questions like this, please consider coming to the next stream, because I am in desperate need of help. Anyway, I did come up with a fun idea of debuffing the enemy before hitting them with the launcher, which allowed me to kill one of them. Now I can enemy phase the others, I suppose. Finally, our reinforcements arrive, and I have to say, our reinforcements are so much better than the enemy reinforcements. Camilla is oft considered one of the best units in this game, if not the best. Selena and Veruca are both fun to use, and at the very worst, they can give and receive marriage seal options that allow for interesting builds. Although I guess that part is true about every character in Fates, but maybe not. Meanwhile, Odin is standing over here continuing to just shoot at these 2 enemies from all the way across the map. Apparently, at some point, I decided this was the best use of his talents, and I couldn't figure out a way for Nyx to fight these 2 archers, even after promoting her, so I decided to back off for now. Moving Felicia first allowed me to get Camilla into a position where she could immediately receive and use the magic tonic. This is going to be useful in the upcoming turns. You can see me being very passive overall and moving most of my units toward the center. I know the better strategy is to push forward aggressively and defeat the enemies as they appear, but you have to know what you're doing, and I didn't feel like I was able to do that. For example, I know that some of the Pegasus will attack you and some of them will ignore you, but I don't have the knowledge to tell them apart, so I was just terrified of every single Pegasus on the map, until after I see how they behave when a unit is left within their range, and you can't rely on that when you're trying to aggressively push forward. Odin and Veruca move into the top left. Again, even with an early promoted Nyx, I am really struggling with these 2 enemies in the top right. You can call it a failure of strategy rather than a failure of Nyx, but I ended up stalling completely on this flank, and it's going to continue to cause problems for the rest of the battle. Meanwhile, this undrafted Niles continues to be pivotal in chipping enemies with the ballista. By removing the sealed defense spear fighter on player phase, I don't need to worry about him debuffing Effie and then causing her to take a bunch of extra damage. The ninja are still going to be a problem, but I decided to just wing it because they're at least not dealing an extra 4 damage per hit. I find myself dancing for Niles in order to get even more chip damage on the right side. I'm going to give the Iron Axe to Camilla so that she can one-round Obero and not deal with the effects of Seal Strength or Seal Defense. And hey, it actually works. Having said that, the situation on the following turn does not look great. I have about 9 units that I need to get rid of, and it feels like I have 3 units capable of doing anything. This map always makes me feel like I'm being completely overwhelmed, and I love it. By having Veruca visit the village, I can use her high mobility to get back to the fight sooner, so that's a minor optimization. Effie isn't looking too great, but I think by removing this spear fighter, it prevents the ninja from being able to deal enough damage to actually hurt her very much, and I'm pretty sure the Pegasus actually deals 0 damage to her, so even if she's left on 1 HP, she cannot die. Niles continues to do an insane amount of work. Unfortunately, due to my rules, I probably won't be able to use him for much longer, because he wasn't drafted and my deployment slots are going to be filled with drafted units very soon. I won't have any room left to send him into battle next time, but here, he's really shining. And for the time being, let's just send Odin back to the center and get some more free chip damage with the Fire Orb. Anyway, these Pegasus decide to behave nicely, ignoring my exposed back line and flying right into my archers so that they can easily be shot down. That was so very kind of them. I have about 1 turn where I feel like things are going okay, but I know that very soon the water is going to be drained, and then it will start to feel like there are enemies attacking me from, 10 different angles. I also noticed and really appreciated that the Iron Axe allows Camilla to either exactly 1 round or exactly 1 shot a lot of enemies on this map at base, and I felt like that was really good intentional game design. I also felt like I was getting some good use out of my other units, like Felicia and Effie, but then Azura just ended up doing nothing, which is always sad. Meanwhile, this pair of Pegasus, which I was terrified of, they just fly right past all of my other units and ignore them, including Effie, who had 1 hit point remaining, although like I said, maybe they just couldn't damage her. On the top right side, I made a huge error, consciously deciding on keeping the extremely injured Mozu unpaired. This forced me to have to scramble to get rid of both of the paired Pegasus Knights, and also somehow get Azura all the way over to the right side of the map so that she could sing for Nyx, so that Nyx could get rid of the remaining archer. To make matters worse, Effie missed a crucial attack against the Pegasus, punishing me even further and giving me almost no outs to deal with this situation. But remember, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't made a misplay in the first place. Somehow, it ends up requiring 3 units just to remove this one enemy. What am I doing, playing Awakening? Both Niles and Azura have to commit their action to singing for Nyx because I need the +1 movement from the pair-up. This leaves half of my army out of position, and after all of that, Nyx still can't fight this guy without risking death anyway, so I just have to go for it, and she dodges. Well, okay, I'm not proud of that, but it worked. By this point, we've left Effie sitting on 1 HP for long enough. Let's heal her and then try to figure out how to deal with the swarms of enemies that are rushing for the goalposts. I decided to use the shove command and push Odin for no particular reason. There was no value in doing this, but I found it extremely amusing. Aside from that, I spent most of this entire turn moving my other units back into position and having Camilla bail me out by dealing with everything else on the left-hand side by herself. Now we have bought ourselves 1 more turn. But really, every turn in this chapter feels like you're buying yourself 1 extra turn to survive, and then next turn you're worrying about an entire new set of problems. I really can't praise the design of this map enough. It's so brilliantly paced to make it feel like every turn is significant, challenging, and rewarding. For example, I removed those fighters on enemy phase, and this gets rid of all of the problems that I was so worried about before, but now suddenly there's 2 additional full groups of enemies that I need to deal with, who just moved into their positions. Thankfully, I can use Odin and Camilla to start this turn by removing the last enemy that was left over, while also building supports with each other, which is one of my goals for them. After this, I can even pair them up, have them fly across the map, and then get rid of this guy with lunge. This is going to allow them to enemy phase without getting lunged out of position. What a power couple. All of my other units are just standing around and waiting to gather all of the free experience that the enemies are about to donate to us. For the next turn, I start off by making my riskiest attack, landing 2 hits with a less than 80% chance, but if those missed, I would have the entire rest of my team in order to bail out. Thankfully, it does hit, and I don't need to steer back on course. The next order of business is to remove the Pegasus Knight from this space, so that I can put my own unit there and block the gap between the partitions. This should allow me to stop most of the other enemies from getting through, and keep my backline safe for the next enemy phase. The Pegasus is going to ignore my units, but they can't reach the goal, so I don't really need to worry about them right now. And for some reason, I had Camilla and Odin run away from the battle on the left. I think at this point during the stream I was tired and I didn't feel like breaking out my calculator to see if Camilla could survive, so I was just operating under the worst case assumption that she couldn't survive and I needed to get her out of there. In any case, for the last turn, I'll use this partition to my advantage now that I've secured it. Niles will go back and remove this Pegasus so I don't forget about them later. As long as all of my units survive, I can win this map. But I decide to try and get as much experience as possible. I start by attacking with the ballista, then having Selena attack to free the space in front of her and create a lane for my units to move through. Camilla has no problem one-shotting enemies. Silas can transfer Odin into a lead position so that he can also remove another archer. We sing for Selena and send her forward to both remove an enemy and then also prevent them from being able to shoot at Nyx during the enemy phase, although Corrin simply got rid of them anyway, so that ended up not mattering. There was one Oni left alive, but he didn't have lethal damage against any of my characters. Somehow I was safe, even though I completely overestimated my own offense and I completely failed at that push. I let Baruka take out one of these ninja on the left just to get a tiny bit of experience as well, and aside from that, the map was finished in probably the most scuffed way possible. That dodge was completely unearned. Also, I discovered at the very end that if your unit gets lunged out of position, they no longer gain support points with the character that they were originally standing beside. This has hilarious implications because it suggests that the enemy ninja can stop your units from building supports with each other by just throwing them across the map, and that is truly a groundbreaking strategy. I was able to beat one of the most notoriously difficult maps in the early game. I built up several of the supports that I was aiming for, and despite the fact that I kept making misplays and I had to be bailed out by good luck, this run is not completely off the rails yet. If you want to see examples of me being smarter and better at Fire Emblem, I recommend you check out some of my Fire Emblem Awakening content. This is a game that I have much more familiarity, experience, and expertise in. And if you want to hear my hilariously bad voice acting and see my scuffed gameplay, you're going to have to check out the next Conquest stream, or at least just sub to the channel. But for now, enjoy the rest of your day.